In Module 2, we focused on the biological aspects of aging, which included examining the physical systems of the body, normal age-related changes, and the development of chronic conditions in old age. As we reviewed the biological aspects of aging, we looked at how cells, organs, and physiological processes change over time. In Module 3, we shift our lens from the biology to the psychology of aging. While there is noticeable overlap in these approaches to aging, we'll highlight throughout this module how a specific focus on psychological aging can elucidate important aspects of the elder experience. We'll begin, like in the last module, with a discussion of theory. If biological theories help explain what happens to the body, psychological theories help explain how people experience aging mentally and emotionally. They help us understand how cognition evolves, how emotional regulation changes, how motivations shift, and how individuals adapt to life transitions across adulthood. Psychological aging is not solely about decline. Yes, as we'll see in this module, certain psychological characteristics and cognitive abilities decline as we age. But certain aspects like emotional development and adaptive strategies can actually strengthen with age. Today, we'll explore several major psychological theories of aging, including lifespan development theory, selective optimization with compensation, and socio-emotional selectivity theory, which together provide a powerful framework for understanding mental and emotional aging. These perspectives build on ideas we introduced in Module 1, particularly the life course perspective and successful aging. They also reinforce a central theme of this course. Aging is dynamic, adaptive, and deeply contextual. Before diving into specific theories, it's worth asking, why do psychological theories matter in a course like this, especially for healthcare administrators and professionals who aren't necessarily deeply embedded in clinical care? After all, wouldn't these topics be more appropriate for doctors or nurses, those actually treating older adults? Well, to answer that question, we have to underscore the purpose and value of psychological theory. Psychological theories, as they pertain to aging, help explain how older adults set goals and prioritize relationships, how they regulate emotions, how they respond to stress and life transitions, and how they adapt to physical changes. These insights can ultimately influence how providers communicate, how programs are designed, and how systems support autonomy and well-being. For example, if we understand that older adults may prioritize emotionally meaningful interactions over information gathering, that has implications for patient communication, community programming, and even marketing of services. It means that a personal touch can go a long way with building rapport and trust with older clients in the healthcare system. And such a notion is derived in part through psychological theory. Psychological theories also complicate simplistic notions of decline. They show us that aging involves gains and losses, not just losses, which is a more stereotypical and ageist view of elderhood. That idea aligns directly with what we discussed in Module 1 when we examined successful aging and heterogeneity in later life. Now, we'll review some key theories in this lecture, some of which are not covered in your readings, but some are, and they're covered much more extensively there. It's thus important to complete the readings for this module in addition to viewing this lecture. Let's begin with a foundational framework, lifespan development theory. Lifespan development theory proposes that development does not stop in adolescence or early adulthood. Instead, it continues across the entire life course. Aging, including in elderhood, is part of development, not the opposite of it. There are several key principles embedded in this theory. First, development is multidirectional. This means that gains and losses occur simultaneously. An older adult may experience slower processing speed while also demonstrating greater emotional regulation and accumulated wisdom. There are thus both positive and negative developments occurring at the same time. Second, development is plastic. Plasticity refers to the capacity for change. Even in later life, individuals retain the ability to learn, adapt, and grow, though the mechanisms may differ from earlier stages. Third, development is historically and socially embedded. This connects directly to the life course perspective we discussed in Module 1. The historical moment in which someone grows up, their cohort experiences, and their social environment all shape how they age. Lifespan development theory reinforces that aging is not simply decline, it is transformation, adaptation, and continued development, shaped by context and experience. Building on lifespan development theory, Baltz introduced the model of selective optimization with compensation, often referred to as the SOC model. This model explains how individuals adapt to aging-related changes by strategically managing their resources. Let's break down each component of the SOC model. The first component is selection. As resources such as time, energy, or physical capacity change, individuals become more selective about where they invest those resources. They may narrow their goals to focus on what matters most. The second component is optimization. Individuals invest effort and practice into maintaining performance in selected domains. For example, someone who values mobility may prioritize regular exercise. The third component is compensation. When certain abilities decline, individuals adopt alternative strategies. A person experiencing vision changes may use brighter lighting or magnification. Someone with mobility limitations may use assistive devices. The SOC model shows that successful aging is not about avoiding change. It is about adapting strategically to the changes that surround you. This directly connects to our earlier discussion of successful aging, particularly the idea that well-being is not defined by the absence of loss, but by effective adaptation. From a systems perspective, the SOC model reminds us that environments should support compensation. Age-friendly infrastructure, assistive technologies, and flexible service models help individuals adapt successfully. One of the most influential psychological theories of aging is socio-emotional selectivity theory, developed by Laura Carstensen. This theory centers on the idea of time perspective. When people perceive their future as expansive, as younger adults often do, they prioritize goals related to knowledge acquisition, exploration, and future preparation. However, as people age and perceive time as more limited, their motivational priorities shift. They place greater emphasis on emotionally meaningful goals, such as deepening close relationships and maintaining emotional well-being. It's important to note that this shift does not reflect withdrawal or decline, although many may perceive these shifts as such. Instead, it represents a strategic reorganization of priorities. Research supporting socio-emotional selectivity theory shows that older adults often maintain smaller but more emotionally satisfying social networks, demonstrate improved emotional regulation, and focus attention and memory on positive information, sometimes referred to as the positivity effect. In many cases, emotional stability improves with age. Older adults often report equal or greater life satisfaction compared to younger adults, despite facing physical challenges. In this way, socio-emotional selectivity theory challenges ageist stereotypes that portray older adulthood as emotionally bleak or socially isolated. Instead, it suggests that aging can involve refinement of social priorities and emotional wisdom. For healthcare and service professionals, this has important implications. Communication that emphasizes meaning, respect, and relational connection may resonate more strongly than purely informational approaches, which is, unfortunately, too often the approach we take. Another important psychological insight involves the role of continuity and identity. People tend to strive for consistency in their internal sense of self and external social roles. Aging does not erase identity. Personality traits, values, and preferences remain remarkably stable across adulthood. This principle has important implications for care environments. when systems ignore personal identity, treating older adults as generic patients rather than individuals, psychological well being suffers. Respecting continuity supports dignity and autonomy, reinforcing themes we explored in Module 1 regarding combating ageism and promoting equitable care. Let's briefly synthesize what these theories tell us collectively. Lifespan development theory tells us that aging is ongoing development, marked by gains and losses. The SOC model explains how individuals adapt strategically to change. Socio-emotional selectivity theory highlights motivational shifts towards emotional meaning and regulation. Continuity emphasizes the persistence of identity across time. Together, these frameworks show that psychological aging is not simply decline. It is adaptive, motivationally reorganized, emotionally sophisticated, and deeply contextual. They also reinforce that successful aging is not the absence of difficulty. It is the presence of adaptation, meaning, and support. For professionals, these theories have direct applications. Healthcare communication should prioritize clarity, respect, and emotional meaning. Programs designed for older adults should recognize that social engagement may be valued more for depth than breadth. Policy and service design should account for heterogeneity and plasticity rather than assuming uniform decline. Most importantly, these theories encourage us to reject deficit-based narratives of aging. To conclude, psychological theories of aging provide essential insight into how people experience later life mentally and emotionally. Aging involves shifting motivations, adaptive strategies, and continued development, not simply deterioration. In our next lecture, we will focus more specifically on cognitive changes in later life, examining what typically changes in memory, attention, and processing, and what remains stable or even strengthens. As you reflect on today's material, consider this question. How might understanding motivational and emotional shifts in later life change the way you interact with or design services for older adults? This concludes the first lecture for Module 3. If you have any questions about the material covered in this lecture, please contact your instructor for this course. Thanks for watching. That's where I'll spend it